People picture billionaire family life as pure access, but the closer you get to extreme wealth, the harder ordinary trust becomes. From the outside, it looks golden. From the inside, it can feel filtered, watched, and surprisingly lonely. If your cousin became a billionaire tomorrow, would your life get easier or just stranger? In this world, distant relatives get attention they never wanted. Spouses get comfort without control, and heirs inherit pressure before they inherit peace. So let's move inward, ring by ring. From distant relatives to the person at the center, you're about to see what changes first, what almost nobody notices, and why the most expensive part of giant wealth often isn't financial at all. Most people imagine the highlights reel: planes, houses, celebrations, effortless access. But that picture hides the real mechanics: roles, boundaries, image management, and a constant question running underneath all of it: who actually trusts whom? The key variable isn't just money, it's distance from control. You can be very close to the fortune, enjoy obvious comfort, and still have almost no authority over the decisions shaping your life.
Extreme wealth works like a building with many locked rooms. Plenty of people get access to comfort, far fewer get access to influence, and those are very different lives, even when they share the same family name. From the outside, it can look relaxed. Inside, there's often more filtering than freedom: who visits, what gets photographed, what gets posted, even which casual message could travel much farther than intended. That's the question under this entire video. Not would it look impressive, but what would it actually feel like to live there? Because visible wealth and inner ease are not always moving in the same direction. Start at the edge of the empire, the distant relative. One casual post, one visible family connection, and suddenly ordinary life gets flooded with strangers, introductions, opportunities, and attention that doesn't feel as flattering as it sounds. People start treating proximity like ownership. They assume access, influence, maybe even a shortcut. But for many outer ring relatives, the strange part is this: everyone else thinks your life changed more than it actually did.
Sometimes the contrast gets almost surreal. A gift that feels tiny inside a giant fortune can completely reset someone else's month, year, or financial breathing room. That doesn't make it fake. It makes the scale difference hard to even process. And help can create its own quiet tension. You may feel grateful, of course, but you may also wonder whether every future interaction now carries a little weight, whether generosity changed the relationship, even if nobody says it out loud. Money changes comparison, even when nobody intends it to. A normal holiday, a normal birthday, a normal thank you, suddenly all of it feels slightly distorted because the family is no longer operating with the same definition of small. Now move one ring inward: the new spouse. Entering this world can feel glamorous, but the real welcome package often includes legal review, privacy rules, and a clear reminder that marriage here is also entry into a protected system. Yes, there are obvious upgrades: better homes, smoother travel, less daily friction, more convenience than most people will ever experience. But comfort is not the same thing as control, and that distinction starts showing up very quickly.
Many in-laws discover the same thing. They're inside the lifestyle, but not inside the engine room. The nicest room in the house may still be one where the most important conversation happens without you. It's not just wealth, it's a whole internal language. Meetings, side conversations, advisors, structures, traditions, things the family treats as ordinary can take years for a new member to understand with any real confidence. Even appearance changes meaning. An outfit isn't always just an outfit. It can signal taste, restraint, values, alignment, distance, or tone. In families this visible, presentation can become a quiet, full-time responsibility. At some point, marriage can start to feel partly like management. Family life, public life, staff coordination, travel, philanthropy, guest lists. Real affection remains, but it sits inside a schedule dense enough to feel corporate. This is one of the least discussed positions in the whole structure. Clearly privileged, clearly inside, yet still not fully trusted with the deepest layer of decisions. It can feel comfortable, visible, and oddly lonely at the same time.
Now consider the sibling with real accomplishments of their own. They may have built a strong business, hired people, created value, and still get introduced in public as an attachment to somebody else's larger story. That's the strange math of extreme wealth. Comparison doesn't disappear when you do well. It can get louder. You're no longer measured against average life. You're measured against one of the most exaggerated benchmarks on Earth. It can create a constant internal question. Am I building a life or just decorating the family legend? Even real competence can feel smaller when public attention keeps flattening your identity into one famous last name. Here's the pattern so far. Getting closer to the fortune can increase comfort, visibility, and status, while also reducing the feeling that you're fully authoring your own story. That tension only gets sharper as we move inward. Then there's the best friend. This person may see the machine up close. Jets, compounds, islands, assistants, schedule choreography. The friendship can be real, but the imbalance is real too, and it never fully disappears.
You can be deeply grateful and still feel the imbalance. Their easy gesture might equal your biggest yearly splurge. So reciprocity shifts from matching value to offering sincerity, loyalty, humor, and presence instead. That's another hidden line. You may be emotionally close to the person, but totally irrelevant to the enterprise. Once the subject turns serious, capital, strategy, reputation, governance, the room often belongs to specialists, not friends. When your access depends on somebody else's orbit, your place can feel less solid than it looks. You're welcome, appreciated, even loved, but you also know the platform under your feet isn't really yours. Now we reach the children. Their world can be astonishingly resourced from the beginning. Elite schools, protected transportation, polished environments, every advantage money can organize. But advantage is not the same thing as ease. Even gifts can arrive with baggage. A luxury watch might be normal inside the family and headline-worthy outside it. So children learn early that enjoyment, image, and public reaction can collide in the same exact moment.
This is where the emotional cost becomes very real. If your house, your routines, your family connections, even your guest list can be sold as attention, how do you know whether someone actually likes you or likes the access around you? The child of extreme wealth may grow up with almost every material advantage and still carry a heavy trust tax. Protection can look like freedom from the outside, while feeling like constant filtering from the inside. At this level, the spouse often isn't just living well. They're helping manage a public-facing ecosystem, events, optics, relationships, soft power, and often a charitable platform large enough to function like a serious organization. A $100 million charitable effort doesn't run on good intentions alone. It involves staff, strategy, governance, public expectations, and decisions that affect real communities. That means the spouse can end up carrying both emotional and institutional weight. At this altitude, a dinner can be more than dinner. Seating charts matter. Guest combinations matter. A conversation can shape relationships, headlines, future partnerships, or just the tone around the family for the next 6 months. And this is where the glamour story breaks down. Behind the polished images, there may be somebody managing a schedule intense enough to blur home, work, reputation, and caregiving into one continuous stream of responsibility. Now we reach the family members who work inside the empire itself. For them, the central emotional challenge is often simple and relentless. Prove that you belong here for your ability, not just your bloodline. That pressure often produces overcorrection. Work longer, prepare harder, arrive earlier, leave later. Not only because the job is demanding, but because the standard isn't good enough. It's good enough to silence the obvious question. Even strong performance doesn't fully clear the air. A normal leader earns praise. A family insider often earns suspicion first, then praise later, if it comes at all. That can make every win feel partly provisional. So far, every inner ring has more access and more pressure, which brings us to the role that compresses the entire family story into one person, the successor, the future carrier of the empire itself.
For the successor, the job isn't just be rich. It's carry a structure so large that your decisions can affect thousands, sometimes far more, of employees, suppliers, partners, and families you will never personally meet. The founder's story can become both compass and burden. You're expected to respect what was built, extend it, protect it, and somehow still be original enough to lead the next era on your own terms. This is the fear almost nobody envies correctly. Not what if I don't get more, but what if I'm the generation that weakens what everyone before me spent decades building? That is a very heavy inheritance. Normal leaders can grow in private. A successor often grows in public. Every hesitation gets interpreted, every sentence gets analyzed, and even a learning phase can look like weakness when the family name is already carrying market-sized expectations. The successor often spends years studying the founder's instincts, discipline, and judgment. But copying the old playbook exactly isn't leadership either. The pressure is to preserve the spirit of the empire without becoming a weaker imitation of it.
Succession usually isn't one dramatic moment. It's a long series of tests. Can this person carry pressure, absorb criticism, make difficult calls, and earn confidence without splitting the family or weakening the institution? The job can start shaping you before you officially have it. Hobbies narrow, time gets structured. People speak to your future title, not your present self. And slowly, identity begins orbiting responsibility instead of curiosity. At this point, the pattern is unmistakable. The closer someone gets to the center, the larger the consequences of each move, and the smaller their margin for being uncertain, private, spontaneous, or simply ordinary. At the very center is the person everyone thinks has the most freedom. In one sense, that's true, but they can also become less like a person in daily life and more like an institution with a heartbeat. Once a person reaches this scale, ordinary conversation can become rare. So much of the day is filtered through significance, money, decisions, risk, image, responsibility, that even simple human interaction starts getting crowded out by consequence.
This is the trust problem at the highest level. When your presence can open doors, move capital, or elevate status, how often are people relating to you plainly, and how often are they responding to the machinery around you? Money of this magnitude can solve logistics with stunning efficiency. Travel friction, staffing friction, scheduling friction, comfort friction, all reduced. But emotional ease is different. You can remove inconvenience without recreating simplicity. Even closeness can get interrupted by scale. The family isn't only living with a wealthy person, they're living beside a decision center. And that means ordinary moments may keep competing with matters that always seem too important to delay. And this is the question that gives the whole story its depth. If expansion brought influence, protection, and world-scale capacity, but also distance, caution, and formality, would a smaller life have preserved more closeness? At some point, the scorecard can change. Bigger may stop feeling automatically better. The question shifts from, how far did I build, to, what did the building process quietly ask my relationships to become?
So the center isn't just richer, it's structurally different. The roles, incentives, fears, and emotional costs all change shape. To really understand this world, we need to look at the hidden variables underneath the visible lifestyle. Here's the deeper pattern. Every ring around extreme wealth gains something visible, but often gives up something subtle. The exact trade-off changes by role, yet the exchange itself keeps showing up over and over again. One hidden shift changes everything. Consumption is what you can enjoy, but control is what shapes outcomes. In billionaire families, many people get some consumption. Far fewer get durable control over the system itself. Another hidden cost is spontaneity. Systems built for safety and efficiency can make small moments feel surprisingly managed. Nothing is wrong exactly, but the texture of ordinary life starts getting smoother, safer, and less alive. Generosity can be beautiful. It can also complicate equality. When one person can solve another person's practical problem almost instantly, gratitude and intimacy may still coexist, but they rarely stay perfectly simple.
This is where wealth starts changing personality structure, not just daily logistics. People begin reacting to your role before they reach your actual self, and over time, that can make selfhood feel strangely negotiated. By now, the fantasy should feel incomplete. Extreme wealth can solve visible constraints beautifully, while leaving the most human questions, trust, meaning, closeness, identity, harder to answer, not easier. And that matters because the point isn't to envy or reject this world. It's to understand what actually changes when money keeps scaling, and what kind of life you, personally, would still want underneath it. The first hidden variable is control. Two people can live under the same family umbrella, use the same jets, attend the same events, and still experience the whole system in completely different ways depending on who can actually decide. The second variable is status source. Earned recognition usually stabilizes identity. Inherited status can accelerate exposure without settling self-worth. That's why even highly capable insiders may keep feeling like they still have something to prove.
The third variable is privacy. Once visibility gets high enough, trust stops being automatic. People become more careful, more selective, more strategic, and that changes the emotional temperature of almost every relationship around them. The fourth variable is machine size. A family with large wealth is not just richer, it often becomes organizationally larger, more staff, more structures, more governance, more image management. Scale changes how people relate before anyone intends it to. The fifth variable is boundary power. Not the power to buy more, but the power to decline more. The healthiest wealthy lives often depend less on visible abundance and more on disciplined, protected, repeatable limits. And the last hidden variable may be the biggest one: culture. The money matters, yes, but the norms around the money matter even more. Warmth, humility, boundaries, and honesty can soften scale. Fear and image can harden it. So the answer was never just, how rich are they? The better question is, what system are they actually living inside? Because net worth alone explains far less than most people think.
To be fair, money is extraordinarily effective at solving logistical problems. Comfort, speed, optionality, quality, expert help, time saved, those are not illusions. They matter. And pretending otherwise would miss the point completely. But it is much less reliable at solving relational and identity problems. Those require character, culture, trust, time, emotional safety, and honest conversation. Wealth can support those things. It cannot substitute for them. This is where the math changes. Satisfaction often stops rising as dramatically as people expect, while optionality keeps growing. That means wealth can keep increasing your choices long after it stops increasing your felt sense of enough. So what should someone realistically aim for? Not maximum display, not abstract domination. A better target is enough with alignment. Enough resources for real freedom without scaling your life so far that it starts managing you back. That may be the real takeaway. Extreme wealth changes the scenery, but not the core human rules. People still need trust, belonging, authorship, meaning, and room to breathe. Money changes the stage. It does not replace the script.
If you want to use this video well, start here. Ask what problem you're actually trying to solve. More income solves some problems. Better boundaries solve others. Cleaner priorities solve others still. Second, separate the categories. Income is not the same as assets. Assets are not the same as control. Control is not the same as image. Most people mix these together and end up admiring the wrong thing. Third, treat trust and relationship quality like assets, not side effects. They take time to build, can be expensive to damage, and are much harder to restore than most visible signs of success. Fourth, the healthiest role for money is often reducing unnecessary noise. Use it to buy time, flexibility, margin, health support, and better decisions, not just a louder identity that other people can see from far away. And of course, this is educational perspective, not personal advice. The point is not to tell you what to want.
It's to help you think more clearly about what different levels of wealth actually change. So what is it like to be a billionaire's family member? Usually more comfortable than most people imagine, more structured than most people expect, and often more emotionally complicated than almost anyone sees from the outside. That final question stays with me most. If becoming enormous cost some degree of natural closeness, would a smaller life have preserved more warmth? There's no universal answer, but it's the right question to end on. If I had to summarize the whole video in one sentence, it would be this: extreme money doesn't just buy a bigger life. It reorganizes attention, trust, power, and identity around everyone close to it. If this changed how you think about wealth, tell me in the comments, which matters more to you, maximum scale or enough freedom with real closeness? And if you want more thoughtful finance explainers like this, subscribe and stay with me. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time, and I hope this gave you a clearer, more honest lens on what giant wealth really does to family life. I'll see you in the next one, where we unpack another money illusion from the inside out.